Welcome to the Remarkable Retail Podcast special 8-part summer series produced in partnership with CommerceNext. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm Steve Dennis. This summer, we're mixing up our format to bring you fast-paced interviews with top retail industry leaders, all of whom graced the stage earlier this summer at the CommerceNext Growth Show in New York City.
We'll be back with our regular format and Season 11 on Tuesday, September 2nd. On this episode, the one and only Ken Pilot is our very special guest. In a fun and wide-ranging conversation, we cover everything from Ken's experience as president of Gap Global, Polo Ralph Lauren Factory Stores, and ABC Carpet and Home, to his current role as tech investor, strategic advisor, and fellow podcast host. We also dissect the current retail operating environment and unpack the tariff math that many retail observers and stock market pundits seem to be ignoring. Oh, and he does a pretty fabulous POTUS impression. Ken, welcome to the Remarkable Retail Podcast here at CommerceNext. How the heck are you?
I am good. It's great to be here in the air conditioning, and thank God it's cooler today. But man, 100-degree heat 2 days ago,
Crazy.
99 degrees yesterday.
Crazy. It almost makes you appreciate shopping malls with their big, vast air conditioning and multiple stores and what. Listen, you are not an unfamiliar name to our listeners. Your name came up in one of our podcast episodes a couple episodes ago with Stephen Yeloff, who was talking about Tanger, and your name came up as a visionary who kind of set the path forward.
Actually, that's not what he said, but we were like, really, the people are going to hear this.
Visionary.
So maybe make it a little more positive.
Visionary. I listened to that podcast a few times.
Yeah.
It's not on loop. It's just a loop. Visionary.
It's his ringtone.
Yeah.
It's his ringtone now.
How did you steal my phone?
I was tapping in. Listen, we obviously all know each other. You're a fellow fellow traveler in this great journey. So much respect for what you do. Tell the people who don't maybe know enough about you, who you are and what you do for a living.
Yeah,
what you did for a living, too.
What I do. Kind of a serial retailer. Started my career with Macy's. Spent my first 5 years in retail at Macy's, and then moved on for an opportunity at Gap. Started there as an associate merchant in men's shorts and outerwear, a way to keep someone busy for both seasons. And then spent 13 years at Gap, with my last job being president of Gap Brand Global, which was a really exciting time to be at Gap up until the end. And then things changed a bit. That's post 9/11. Spent the next 5 months over at J.Crew, where I was the CEO. Was there for only 5 months because my former boss at Gap thought it would be a great idea for him to go to J.Crew too. So Mickey joined Gap, and I eloquently backed out. I thought it wouldn't be big enough for both of us.
The world is not big enough to hold Mickey and Ken.
Just one pause. You went, in 13 years, you went from a buyer to the president.
Yes.
You're obviously very skilled, but for listeners, people listening, many of whom are retailers and they aspire to leadership roles, what was it that accelerated that journey so fast? Because that's a pretty quick and remarkable journey.
I think it was really, and I'll give credit to Macy's for this, because in Macy's the training program was very much store line and buying line, and they really believed moving merchants or their employees from one to the other. So you got a great understanding of what the customers loved from both the buy side and also the store side. And I think understanding and gaining these insights into how a company is run was such a huge advantage for me, that I was able to really parlay that into a bigger job at Gap. And my interests weren't just in buying product, though. That's my favorite thing to do. But it was also operational. It was in planning. It was forecasting, allocation, store operations, real estate.
That's rare to have the art and science together in one person. Like, some people just suffer through it, one way, shape, or the other. But you seem like you could handle both and love both at the same time. And
probably the best opportunity I ever had was, at the time, the worst job I was ever given, which was to run Gap Outlet. And I remember Mickey telling me I was going to go run Gap Outlet, and I was like, but there isn't one. And he said, well, go make one. And I'm like, God, what did I do wrong?
Right.
So I had an office, I had a phone. They had one store.
Did you feel like you're, I don't want to say sideline, but did you feel like that was a kind of a vertical, horizontal?
Sidelined is a good term. It was like the dude is out there. So I had one store think it was Milwaukee and Diversity in Chicago, which was the worst performing store for Gap brand. That was an outlet store. But they just said, Ken, we've got a ton of product out there. We have goods that are being sold off by our factories to third parties. It's showing up all over. Clean up the supply chain, build a business. And we were very aware of what Ralph Lauren was doing at the time. And it was a very profitable area for companies. So I kind of dug in, built a small team, put some rules in place, and within 36 months, we had opened 100 outlet stores. We were the most profitable division in the company, including Old Navy, even though we were like a bane in their existence because we had the highest ROI in the company. But in outlets, the economics were amazing if your brand was good, and we were still a great brand, along with Ralph Lauren, who was in. But when you're running a 10,000 square foot store that's generating $5 million in sales, and you're doing it at 2% rent and 6% pay, the average four-wall profit on a store at the time was about 30%.
Wow.
Which today you would kill for 15.
Sure.
So a 30, 35, 40% four-wall profit, which was not unheard of, was the norm. And we were growing very quickly. So it started as something that I was not excited about. And by the time I was done, I was incredibly passionate about it. And was asked to run Banana Republic and launch them in the outlets. And then from that job, I went on to run Gap International. Gap had stores in 5 countries. Was in that position for about a year and a half, and then took on Gap Brand Global and did that for almost 2 years. And then went on to J.Crew, where Mickey decided it would be great for him to take over the company. And I exited only because it was too small for both of us to be there. He came in as chairman of the board. I was CEO. I went on to work at Ralph Lauren, where I ran factory stores and new business development. While I was there, I launched rugby. So I had the passion of working with Stephen Yalof.
Yeah.
He's a visionary.
Yeah. We loved our interview with him.
Because a two-person visionary club.
Very funny. Well, I have to pay him later for his visionary comment and hello me. But it's very funny. When I was at Macy's as an assistant buyer, this woman, Leora Resnick, I'm trying to remember her maiden name. Anyway, Leora was my trainee. That became his wife. And so I knew Leora for a long time, and then Steven I knew from my outlet days when he was working in the outlet area, and I brought him over to Gap. And then we remained friends, still were friendly, and he then went on to work with me, or I went on to join him at Ralph Lauren. And then from Ralph Lauren, I went on to American Eagle, launched a new business there. And then after American Eagle, I got out of apparel altogether, did a toy startup called Robot Galaxy. Basically Build-A-Bear for boys. It was fascinating, but we started it in 2008. We raised $7 million. We opened up 2 locations super fast, both B malls, Freehold, New Jersey, Palisade Center, in just right by the Tappan Zee Bridge, or the Como Bridge, as maybe it's called today. I can't remember. And then we did our 3rd location inside of Toys R Us. And we were like preparing for an exit. We had a term sheet from Disney. I said, wow, this is great. And then the world literally got upended. So the only exit we had was us with our shirts on our back, and that was it, unfortunately. And then I spent 5 years at ABC Carpet and Home as president of the brand. And it was a family business.
That's the big store right in the Flatiron District, right?
It's
Herald Square. It's still there, right?
Still there.
Crate and Barrel's across the street now, right?
They are. That used to be the carpet store for ABC.
Okay.
And, it's a family business. It's actually my family's business. My uncle started the business.
Oh, really?
Before he says his father started the business with a push cart. And the reason it was called ABC is because it showed up first in the phone book. Really strategic thinking back in the day. There was no AI.
Right.
So,
which also starts with A, which would do well in the phone book, as it turns out.
Which would. You could AIBC. They would have renamed the company. They could have been successful.
I just got that URL.
But my uncle told me there's no greater oxymoron than a good family business, and he wasn't wrong. Anyway, I was there for 5 years, then left the business and really got into doing something that I had no interest in, which was investing in technology. Not only did I have no interest in investing in technology, but I never liked technology. Like when you would say, here are the meetings of the day, Ken, what would you like to attend? It was not going to the tech meeting. Like I would go to a tech meeting, the cash registers are down, we can't open the store. Like, okay, Ken, go to the meeting, yell at somebody, and get the cash registers open. I mean, tech was just a necessary evil.
Right.
Ken Seif, who you probably know, I give him a lot of credit. I've known Ken for years. He had a fund called Beanstalk Ventures, and he was investing in early stage retail technology. I put some money in, and then I decided to meet some of the founders who were in the fund, and I was like, oh my God. If I had had one of those or one of these or one of those while I was running the businesses, maybe I wouldn't have failed as many times as I did. So I just all of a sudden, a geeky interest in from POS to planning, forecasting, allocation platforms to RFID, and it was really very interesting to me. So over the past 15 years, I've been investing in and or advising early stage technology companies, retail tech companies that help brands scale. And lately, I'm mostly leaning into, obviously, companies that are heavily invested in AI to improve the customer journey.
Sure.
And that's what's that's sort of brings you current. And then I have to be competitive, I have a podcast.
No, I was going to ask you about the podcast. Congratulations. It's a great thing, and it's a big lift, and you share lots of wisdom. So
it's fun. I have a very good friend, Rob Sharp, who I give a lot of credit. His wife, Ramey Sharp, has a company, Ramey Brook. And Rob was like, Ken, why don't you do a podcast? You know so many people in retail. So he kept pushing, and I tried it, and it's the Retail Pilot, Leaders and Legends. It's all really retail CEOs.
All the major podcast platforms.
It's fun. It keeps me connected. I learn a lot, and then it allows me to really see what they need in the way of technology. So kind of works for my ecosystem and hopefully theirs. So I do that, and then I also work with some brands and advise, and just finished doing some work with Steve Madden, looking at their store business and trying to understand more about ways they can improve their store business, and work with Not Standard for over a year and a half, looking at their product. So that's my life, from tech advisory, podcasting, and then brand advisory.
So maybe you know a thing or two, and I've heard you're a visionary. So let's tap into that. Let's tap into that. What's top of mind for you in terms of things you believe retailers should really be thinking about and acting on? I mean, there's the obvious tariff turbulence, which we've had a couple conversations about that. But what do you want to riff on a little bit?
I'll talk about. I'm going to come back to tariffs because I think that's creating a moment for us in retail we're all struggling with. But top of mind for me, I think probably one of the most important areas for retailers right now is search. And I'm saying it both in terms of organic search, how customers are searching for product, and then on-site search. Two separate things. I think with what we're seeing today with Perplexity and ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, OpenAI in general, it's really changing the way we're all searching. I'm sure you're all using either one, two, or three of them, but our natural language search versus key term search is the way we search. I'm going to...
What did I hear yesterday in a breakfast meeting that search terms has gone the average of 5 to 35 or something like that, order of magnitude.
That's right. And the new buzz term, which I love, I just learned it. We all need a new acronym, but GEO, Generative Engine Optimization, like SEO, but Generative Engine Optimization, why is it important? What does it mean? It means it's the ability for a brand's product to get picked up by Perplexity, Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT.
Any number of new agents.
That's right.
I've heard it called authority as well, building authority.
But it's really important, like how easy is it, or how often will your product be made available on one of those search engines? So let's just say that this is the way we're doing search. They're 35-word search phrases versus 3. Now, take that to a brand's site. that's how I search. So if I put in my 35-word search term into the search bar and I get back no items found, I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done to get your product discovered outside of your site, to drive traffic to your site, but then on site to make sure that it's very consistent from a search perspective with how consumers are now searching. So I think that is table stakes for right now.
Mm-hmm. So let's shift gears maybe a little bit to the tariff side of the equation, or at least what retailers need to be responding to right now to win this moment, or at least survive this moment, perhaps in some cases.
You know what's crazy? AI is so invasive. You can't spell tariff without AI. So let's just go right into tariff.
Can't spell tariff.
Yeah.
So
can you spell visionary without? You can't spell visionary without AI either. Is that right?
Unbelievable. I mean. So thinking about tariffs, we're in this moment where we're waiting for the 90 deals in 90 days to happen. By the way, I think we're Liberation Day was April 2nd.
I think we're like day 80.
We have a deal done.
The day we're recording it. Yeah.
We had a deal done. We have one deal, big beautiful deal done. It's a big deal.
Announced in Canada, by the way. I always get my Canada reference
51st
in.
Canada 51st. There's still an opportunity, Mike, for your people.
You're lying like a dog, Mike.
Golden Dome. It's
Golden
It's
Dome.
$500 billion. But for you, nice country you got there. Shame if something happens to it.
So waiting, but if our best friends in the world got 10% tariff, and that's the UK, what's going to happen? And now, I guess we could say worst case scenario is 30% or 55%, depending on how you look at the math for China.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But that's the top.
Yep.
The big question for our industry remains what's going to happen with Southeast Asia and what's going to happen with India. Mm-hmm. My gut, India gets a favorite nation status of 10%. 10% is the minimum to join the Trump Club, and that's what it costs to bring goods into the United States. India is going to get a deal. I think Southeast Asia is going to get screwed. If I had a guess, feels like 25%-ish. Mm-hmm. Vietnam for sure. Probably 35% of the factories in Vietnam are owned by the Chinese.
Right.
And we all know there's a lot of goods being pushed there, moved there, submarine there.
There's a bunch of factories in Italy owned by the Chinese. We know that thanks to COVID.
That's right. So, and then the question is what happens with Europe? He's very upset because he has no one to negotiate except for the folks in Brussels, and this really upsets the Donald. So I don't think it'll be 25% in Europe, but is it on the EU? Will it be 15%? So where does it net out for retailers? I don't know, but if I had to guess, your tariffs went from last year. Let's just say your weighted tariff was 5%. I'm going to guess this year it could be closer to, let's say, 20. Mm-hmm. Let's say it's closer to 20.
And obviously that's going to, the particular retailer's got whatever mix of sourcing strategies. So.
All mix. Yeah. What is actually made in the U.S., what's made in the EU, what's made in Southeast Asia, what's made in India, maybe 10%, but 30%. I don't think China's coming down. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to stay. So let's just say it's 20%. What does that mean for a retailer, for a brand? Well, if your net margin is 50, or it was 50, and now if you do the math, if you're taking a 20%, it's not quite straightforward, but let's just say you're taking a 20% increase on cost. That actually equates to a 10-point reduction of profit, of pure profit, right to the bottom line.
On the percentage of goods that are tariffed.
That's
so
right.
It's not
on the percentage of goods that are tariffed.
So we obviously have retailers that are 20%. We have retailers that are 60% or even higher in some cases, right?
And that would be, and I would use that math if the retailer didn't get any benefit from the factory, which mm-hmm. they will, or the retailer didn't raise price on the customer,
which they will,
which some
in
would
some
like
way,
to.
shape, or form.
They will like to, and again, it all depends on price elasticity.
Sure.
Do I have a brand like Viore would have more price elasticity than maybe Gap, so they would be in a better place to say, you know what, I might be able to go from $78 to $84 for a pair of shorts. Gap might not be able to go from $48 to $54 on a shirt.
Right.
So we'll see. But so if in lieu of raising prices, in lieu of making operational changes and cuts on your team, in lieu of the factory taking on its share, you could lose up to 10 points of EBITDA, which in general, you think about our industry, brands are somewhere between 10 and 15 points of EBITDA is probably the average. So it's a massive hit. Retailers are going to have to figure out how to get those points back because you can't leave them on the table.
And I don't want to make this about the stock market or just sort of the general zeitgeist of how people are feeling, but I do feel like, for reasons I don't completely get, the worry about tariffs is kind of generally seems to have subsided a little bit, and I don't know whether that's just other things are sucking up.
There are a few other big things
energy,
happening in the world to take up your mental time.
But consumers haven't, for the most part, we haven't seen a lot of changes at retail, or they're slowly dribbling out because people are selling. I mean, there's not a reason to not do some other things with pricing, perhaps, but if you own it at the old cost, and that's what you're going through, you're not getting the pain in your P&L quite yet. But that seems to me to be weeks, maybe a couple months away for everybody. But what's your take on whether people are just kind of have irrational exuberance, I guess, for lack of a better term?
I think retailers are waiting to understand what the full impact of tariffs are before they really move forward with a reset pricing strategy. Some have already started. I mean, you do know, if you're smaller companies, many of whom are really dependent on China, because China versus Southeast Asia, China will do smaller runs of product.
Yeah.
So you get companies that could be 50, 75, 100 million in volume. Those companies are putting their product in China because they can't get the MOQs, the minimum order quantity, is much larger in Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia. China will do smaller runs. It's also better quality. Yeah. So there's the smallest companies are the ones that really get hit the hardest. That's why when you hear companies like Gap or American Eagle that have already moved, like by the end of this year, less than 5% will be in China. I mean, they've been moving since Trump 1.0.
Yeah.
But they have the wherewithal, the means, the volume. Everyone wants their business. They can move their business anywhere. Smaller companies have been stuck. So I think, in general, I don't think we've seen the full impact of price increases yet. I think
we're talking here in almost July, so
that's
just
right.
to date stamp this for when folks are listening to it.
And would you say your view, like I've heard, I would say what I see as sort of the consensus opinion, at least among people that seem to know what they're talking about, is that if you've got great pricing power, then that's one thing, but not that many brands you were alluding to earlier. Hermes, you can Viore, et cetera. So,
good brand.
But for the vast majority of brands and the vast majority of volume, it seems like even if you have a view we're not going into a recession, but just in general, the pressure on elasticity, how much of that can you possibly get back from consumers? So doesn't that lead to it mostly coming out of margin? And then is that a persistent issue? Because, well, I guess we don't know where.
You're basically, are you resetting the whole margin table with this year?
Right. I mean, if you're let's just say a department store that barely breaks even, and suddenly you have hundreds of millions of dollars of costs, some of which maybe you can pass on, maybe get a little bit of break from a factory. But if you've got to eat basically that margin, there's only so much you can do in terms of reducing payroll. I mean, a lot of companies don't have enough payroll, arguably, right, to support the business. So where's this going to go? I mean, it just seems to me like some brands are really about to run into a wall, and whether it's 2 months from now or 6 months from now, I guess we'll see. But is that too bleak a perspective?
I agree. It's also, you think about it again when you think about smaller companies that might be doing the majority of their manufacturing in China. Toy companies, craft companies,
luggage,
anything with plastic molds are there. They have to pass. And now they know they're at 30%. They've got to pass some of that on. And then what happens to their business? Does it fall off?
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but it's going to put a lot of pressure on retail in general. Again, the stronger brands that have stronger brand following, that have the most loyal customers will weather the storm. And customers that are on the bubble they're going to see the bubble pop.
Sure.
It's just there's not there's not a lot of support.
Is there a scenario, and then I'll throw the mic back to Steve, you talk about just advice for, since you put your technology hat on, advice to technology folks and retailers, but is there a world in which the U.S. government is now collecting billions of dollars of tariffs that start to go where exactly? That's a lot of money that is collected in this country, and it can be used to reduce taxes, which could lead to more consumption. Is there a world in which you can see there a little bit of sunshine?
Mike, you got to stop me. That's my big, beautiful bill. It's all in the bill. It's how it works. It's how it works. Billions and billions of dollars coming in. It's a beautiful thing, Mike.
Not to parrot the speaking line.
Excuse me.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I'm going to hit my red button. I'm going to hit my red button and get my Diet Coke right now.
Steve, please have Mike leave the room. I'm talking. We don't want to finish the thought here.
I didn't even dress up here.
Okay,
I don't have the cards to play in this conversation.
You could be.
Is there a universe where we see, wherever this thing lands, that there's some sort of, for retailers, in the context of retailers, that there's some sort of consumption leveler in that people's taxes go down because all this money is now used for something else, or it's just gone to the military budget and you never see it, and this is a dark period for retail?
I mean, between taxes and debt, there's got to be some dents made. I mean, that's probably the overarching thought. It's just also the question of what happens to all of these companies that actually need relief because they're going out of business. What happens to unemployment? Are we really going to make product in the United States? I don't think we're making shoes here anytime soon. That industry isn't coming back. It's interesting.
I've heard we can build bananas here, though. Secretary Lutnick said that in the Senate hearing, that if you just build your bananas here, there'll be no problem.
We would build the bananas here. We would do the phones here. We just need to allow more people across the border, which I think that's an odds as well.
Yeah,
Who is making and building? Who's making the iPhones? Who's building the bananas? Who's gonna rebuild L.A.?
Right.
I mean, labor shortage.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, 40% of agriculture workers are undocumented.
That's right.
And they're not showing up in the fields right now. Anyway, so let me pass it back, Steve. Bring us home. This has been a by the way, this has been so much fun.
I love this. I'm not getting. Are you wrapping up? I'm not leaving, man.
Part of our 16-part series.
This is a big crowd. This is going to be the biggest audience ever.
We're going to have the biggest numbers.
I have big numbers. Big numbers. People listen when I talk.
It's going to obliterate our downloads.
It's going to stuff. Hopefully you caught this on.
This is going to take you 16 hours to edit, just so we can just
edit. I won't be editing this at all.
There'll be no editing.
I'm not touching.
My podcasts aren't edited at all.
So, not that we were afraid of being a little bit pessimistic in some of the things we discuss on the Remarkable Retail podcast. Let's maybe switch to be perhaps a bit more optimistic. When you look at technology, we've talked about this a little bit, but are there some other technologies that you're getting really excited about, or just other trends that you say retailers really should be leaning into if they're not perhaps paying enough attention to that?
Yeah, there are a few areas that I'm excited about. I'm going to throw some names out if that's okay, only because I like what
100%.
they do.
Hold them up. 100%.
We just invoice them, and some of them pay us.
Well, I found a company called Curated for You, and it's very interesting what they do. They are basically an online merchant on steroids in terms of how they can merchandise a page. What they do is they create event and occasion bubbles at the top of the page. Summer wedding, game day. You click on one of those bubbles, and there's what to wear to that occasion or event. So it's terrific when you know where you're going, but you have no idea what you need. Mm-hmm. Think about it. You have companies out there like maybe a Lily AI that can help you find an item, and then a Stylytics or a Find Mine that can complete the look.
Right.
But what if you don't even know what item to start with?
Right.
You just know that you're going to a Longhorns game. You know what the colors are. Show me what to wear in your catalog. Mm-hmm. And then here are all the things you can wear to a Longhorns game. Mm-hmm. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I love it. And they're a Series A. They're raising a Series A. 2 women out of Texas. Love what they're doing. That one's fun. All AI related. Obviously, AI is pulling together all of the looks. What else is exciting out there? Raspberry AI. I think I may have shared that with each of you. It's both a creative tool for designers, and it's also a marketing tool. But on the creative side, Raspberry enables a designer to upload a sketch of a product to a photoreal image, and then with a simple ChatGPT prompt, iterate and change until it's right.
Yeah.
Once it's right, you can then put it on an AI model in an AI location, and then actually create an AI video.
So all we need is an AI customer at that point. So there's your agentic AI.
I mean, this would all be a lot easier if it weren't for those pesky customers.
But check this out. This is what I love about it. Thinking about the supply chain, a designer in the morning can come up with an idea, create a product, and in the afternoon, it's posted on Instagram or TikTok.
Well, this is the Shimu and Temu strategy.
Now the next step is just how to get it straight to the landfill. Well, that's the thing we haven't figured out yet.
Or their landfill direct model.
But it's actually just before that, though, Mike. So if you think about it, I may not make it if not enough people like it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Although Shein and Temu, they would also maybe produce a couple hundred, and if it isn't like they don't make anymore.
That part of their model is very innovative and very game changing.
Yeah. So I love that. Now, then you start to deal a little bit with the AI, like it's working with a designer and telling them that they're using an AI tool. That's like freaky.
Yeah.
So you really have to explain it. And the way I like to explain it is we're not replacing you, but we're replacing your bike with a car. You're just going to get there faster. Why wouldn't you want to see 4 variations of a design really, really quickly? It's going to help you do your job. So there is, I feel, in companies in general, a lot of creative tension, resistance. Angst to using AI on the design side or on the marketing side. But then you look at what, I don't know if either of you saw Montclair did an amazing, completely AI-generated commercial, video ad campaign.
Oh, yes, I have seen that.
And they did it with Google. It took them 4 weeks from start to finish. It's called From Mountain to City, and it shows a guy on the top of a mountain, and he's waving his arms, and he's creating these snow tornadoes. It's wild, all AI generated. You would know, because how do you create a snow tornado and stop it? But it was beautiful. So you think about it, if companies or the creative parts of companies are saying we're not going to do it, they're going to lose, because other companies out there are going to embrace it and win. And you still have to tell AI what it is you want. It still has to look right to the brand, has to be on brand, the right product, the right feeling, the right aesthetic. It's still many iterations.
It's like Disney animators, right? You used to draw it on a pen on a big board, but you still need that skill to inform the technology to create animation, right? You, me, I don't know, maybe you, but not me. I couldn't create wonderful animation no matter what tool you gave me, kind of thing, right?
So I think those are two platforms that I'm excited about. The other thing that I'm thinking about too. We talked about retail media networking, retail marketing network, RMN, right? I'm like, what is that? How is that even coming to fruition? And how can that help put money in retailers' pockets? Because right now you got to look for money wherever you can get it to offset tariffs, slower, customer concerns, etc. Thinking about ways that retailers can actually raise some money without really interfering with the customer experience.
That was going to be my question. I mean, I know we're long on time here, but just maybe another podcast. You shouldn't start taking the plane off again just as you're landing. But unless you're going to, well, anyway.
I'm the guy that uses the flight stuff. That's my name. You're hitting on. This is proprietary.
Intellectual property violation.
You crossed the line there, buddy.
Crossed the tarmac.
I'm pretty sure we negotiated a royalty-free license in perpetuity before we started. You signed that form, Ken. I'm sorry.
I did.
You just need to read that. But terms and conditions. Anyway, but that's part of the tension, though. Like, your primary thing as a retailer is to leverage your value proposition, and interruption marketing, getting that balance right, I assume, is a huge issue. I'm not saying there's not an opportunity.
Tail wagging the dog, right?
It's a big look. It's where your CMO comes and goes, great idea, not on brand, you're finished.
Right. Yeah.
But I think everyone's got to look for ways to continue to evolve, whether it's technology, it's RMN. How do I continue to move forward, improve profitability, product, tech, marketing, all of it?
I guess last question then maybe is in this case is do you worry, because you've been in these frontline jobs and I'm sure you've had opportunities or situations where things are going great, things are not going so great. So if you're a retailer, insert your favorite struggling retailer here, that is barely making money, hasn't found a way to get the top line going, and then something like retail media networks come along that looks like easy money, maybe in the way people thought about credit card income or other kinds of ancillary things. Not that they're not important, but do you worry that they may chase what looks to be easy money and take their eye off the ball of fixing the core brand?
I think you can do both. I think a lot of these things that are easy money are really easy to try. Integration is a nothing burger. You can see if it works, doesn't work. Yeah. I think it's worse to not try it.
Yes, so it's not run to the bright shiny object, test it out, see if it works.
It's not like putting in an ERP.
Yeah,
I mean, that's brain surgery. So I think you have to do both. I mean, it's a journey, and we've seen retailers go from highs. I mean, look at Gap, right? They've been on that journey of like winning, failing. Now they're coming back. They're winning again. Most important thing is getting the product right. All this other stuff we talk about is incredibly secondary. But incredibly important also to making sure that you can deliver the best possible profit. But without the product being right, without creating that emotional connection to the customer, everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place to leave it. This has been a fantastic conversation. We obviously could go on for a long time. I definitely need to work on my Trump impression. Yours is
masterful.
Pretty good. It's some have even called it a visionary Trump impression. But anyway, we'll leave it there. Ken, thanks so much for coming on the Remarkable Retail Podcast. Even though I hate to promote another podcast, Ken's is excellent, and you should check that out as well on all the major platforms. So thanks, Ken.
Thank you, guys. Enjoyed.
Thanks for listening. Please don't forget to give us that 5-star rating and review wherever you enjoy your podcasts.
And be sure to subscribe and check out our latest retail store tour videos on the Remarkable Retail Podcast YouTube channel.